Welcome back, everyone. This is Mr. Brain, your friendly neighborhood gaming dad, here with another hero breakdown video. And today I'll be going over Hank Janowitz. Sorry to shit ass, I'm going to be speaking honestly about him. So, without further ado, we'll be splitting this up into 4 sections. One, I'll talk about their skills. Two, I'll talk about how they should be used. Three, a good talent build for them. And four, who you should be pairing them with in order to get maximum effectiveness out of using this commander. Without further ado, let's get into their skills. First skill is direct damage of 4500 and a burn damage of 900 for 5 seconds, so another 4500. It also deals bonus damage of 3500 to garrison squads. Now, when you put all of this together against garrison squads, it's some of the highest single target damage you can get in the game. I am a little averse to damage over time because that damage factor actually drops because of your amount of troops drops over time. So you're not going to get the full 4500 out of the burn damage, but it's still a pretty substantial amount of skill damage being dealt to enemy garrison squads. Now, garrison squads means anything that your troops can garrison in. This includes towers, fortresses, villages, regardless of level, and of course your own shelter. So keep that in mind. Skill number 2 increases damage dealt to lookout towers by up to 30% in siege and increases resources rated by up to 10%. This entire skill requires you to be hitting a shelter specifically. Hank is amazing at clearing out shelters for reasons like this, because a lot of his skills are geared towards siege specifically. To be able to take out lookout towers, which are arguably the highest attack units that you could have in your shelter, to be able to take out the lookout tower quickly is very beneficial to keeping your troop count high in shelter attacks. And it's also a nice bonus to be able to get extra resources from a shelter after combat is over, because raiding a shelter is expensive for your troops and for your own resources. So to be able to take a little bit more resources from your enemy, it's always kind of nice. Third skill, squad's basic attacks have a 10% chance to deal bonus damage of up to 3200 during siege. This skill puts him above any other commander in skill damage during siege. Now, this does mean it only works during siege, but with the 12,500 damage you get from his active skill, plus another 3,200 that you get from this passive skill damage, you're looking at over 15,000 damage factor towards a garrison doing what he does best. Now, there are other commanders that can boost skill damage of their own skills that would push them slightly higher than this, but in terms of raw skill damage, Hank wins whenever he's in siege. And number 4 increases squad capacity by up to 12% and rally capacity by up to 12%. If you've heard me talk about squad capacity before, that is a straight 12% buff to every stat in the game. Your attack, your defense, your HP, your damage, everything goes up whenever your squad capacity goes up. Rally capacity works the same way. However, keep in mind that certain attacks have a rally capacity limit. For example, in towers, you're only allowed to rally them with 1.5 million troops. This keeps things fair between two alliances fighting each other. Otherwise, you would have a limited garrison size in a tower, but I believe 2.5 is about the highest you can get. 2.5 million is about the highest you can get in a rally capacity. So kind of a bit unequal there. But in towers, it's made equal by a rally capacity limit. This 12% will still work against shelters. It's really great for counter rallies, if you know what those are. But keep in mind, it doesn't work everywhere. And his awakened skill is actually not one that affects the other skills. It's a completely separate skill. Basic attacks have a 10% chance to reduce the target's damage by 8% and defense by 20% for 3 seconds. This is pretty substantial on him because he does do quite a bit of damage over time, and his damaging skills are a bit sporadic. Between 3,200 from his third skill and the damage over time from his burn, you're looking at this defense affecting one portion of his skill damage almost every time it activates. And of course, reducing the target's damage against you gives you a bit of an edge at being able to take them out quicker. Now, if you haven't already figured out from his skills and the way I talk about him, he's a siege commander. He is not a field commander. He is not someone you should be using in arena. He is not the greatest at expedition. He can be used in adventure because personally I really like this flamethrower. There's not a lot of limitations as to how many it can fight. This flamethrower is pretty powerful at close range. And the fact that it isn't limited to hitting one target at a time, such as say Cynthia's guns, is pretty impressive because my tactic in adventure is to put up Raigoro as a wall and then just let the enemy stack against him, using Hank's flamethrower as kind of a batter. I haven't been able to use that lately because, of course, his level is too low for that. But I like to find a support Hank in one of my alliance mates to help out with that. But as far as that's concerned, that's it. Siege and Siege alone. Now, I haven't had a good chance to test out the different talent builds for Hank, and I don't think I ever will. I am primarily a garrison commander, so I tend to stay away from rallies except to fill them with troops. But just from looking at it from a numbers perspective, I don't see a lot of point in going down the siege tree at all. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, when you have his skill tree right over here that gets a lot of rage generation to help his skills out, skill damage buffs, and the amazing 20 rage when using basic attacks up to 120 when it's fully maxed. And he's also got the leader tree, which is really good for buffing rally capacities, increasing squad's attack and defense when leading multiple troop types, which, considering Hank isn't locked down to one troop type, he can make use of both of these skills up here if you want to go that route. Personally, I like joint attack for obvious reasons. But for me, maxing out his skill tree and then getting up here to joint attack would be in your best interest. That should still give you enough points to pick up Raging Will to get a little bit more rage generation. After that, I would come down and pick up stat bonuses from the siege tree if you have any points left. Now, as far as pairs for Hank, if you're going to be using Hank at all, you're likely spending. A free-to-play player should be avoiding Hank at all cost, simply because in order to be a decent rally commander, you have to have a rally size that can accommodate the amount of troops necessary to have these large-scale fights. And you're going to need a couple of commanders that are capable of siege. And if you're free to play, you're focusing on one or two, maybe three commanders once you get to my point in the game. But if two of them are just slated for siege, you're not going to be able to perform well in other areas of the game. That being said, if you have the money to spend, I do not have him because I'm not going to get that high of VIP level just to spend $100 on him. But Jin, I have seen a lot with him. Jin is also not locked down to any troop type, and he has great stat bonuses. You can see Jin lead Hank in this case, so that you have that epic 40% attack buff for 5 seconds, which lasts almost the entire time of Hank's skill damage. A small amount of healing, which will definitely help in the long run. Another 11% rally capacity, which will bump your maximum rally capacity to a little over 2.4 million if I did my math right. And of course, another 11% siege damage. Jin's Awaken skill, if you've gotten Jin, you've probably awakened him, is an extra 10% buff to attack and defense and increases the rage generated during those 5 seconds by 5 points. So if you don't want to have a rally that's locked down to one troop, or if you're going to use this as a counter rally, which is very effective, run Jin Hank as a counter rally or as a secondary to a primary rally team that uses a specific troop type. When I say that, I mean commanders such as Sven, who focus on riders and siege, which actually fare quite a bit better in tower rallies or in fishing village rallies and island raid, a lot better than mixed troop armies. Carrie is our resident ranged siege. I haven't seen him in combat a lot yet. I am hoping he can counter thunders, but if he does happen to counter thunder very well as far as his healing is concerned, I wouldn't be surprised to see Hank and Johnny together, for the simple fact you want to put out as much damage as possible while the healing is low. And with that, I believe I've covered everything. Again, I apologize to my alliance mates who happen to be using him. One in particular, you know who you are. I know Hank is one of your favorites and you use him better than most anyone I've seen, but this is the truth about him. And with that, this is Mr. Brain, your friendly neighborhood gaming dad, signing off.